Hello and welcome. Season 5, Episode 11 of Dualistic Unity. I am realizing that I can just be attentive to where I'm at, enthusiastic and attentive to the moment I'm experiencing, and anything beyond that does not need so much consideration. I can just be here, be attentive to this, and realize that this is it. This is all there is forever.
And try to pay attention to where the details fill in. They always fill in where you're paying attention. And what I mean is that if you look towards the future, some fictional future, you'll see a lot of details about that the more you focus on it. But what you're missing are the details that are happening around you. You're missing the details of this moment, here, when you do that. And if you focus your attention here, which just means relaxing and allowing yourself to be focused, the more the details fill in, the more the colors are a bit more vibrant, the sounds are a bit more crisp, and people are talking to you a little bit more clearly because the details fill in where your attention is focused. Where is your attention focused?
And just how many things there are that keep us from focusing our attention here and now. Like how many things there were that we experienced that took us away from just being where we're at. Like we were there, we lived there for a very long time growing up, right? We were always there. And then we found out reasons not to be. And so we focused on just something else, anything else besides where I'm at. And there's a degree of avoidance that we get used to. And it's a good reason at the time because it's all we know, but we never go back to reassess, and see, oh, maybe it is okay to just be here. Now, maybe this is the only thing I have to be attentive to. Maybe I don't have to pay as close of attention to the story in my head that I utilized for so long to feel a degree of safety because it was something besides where I was at. It didn't feel safe. And so, can you take the chance of finding out if it's okay to just be here again, give it another shot, test it out again, and see, maybe you find out that you can just be where you're at.
And you start to realize that while you think you're on a journey trying to feel safe, it's actually the journey that you're using to feel safe. It's the idea that you can get somewhere, that there is control that you can exercise that's going to change the experience that you're having right now. It's the journey that is the escape. Just be where you are. Just be where you are. Just be what you are. And in that, you will start to recognize what that is. But we spend a lot of time running from that only because we don't know what that means. And as soon as we try to think of it, our brain comes up with an idea, and then we take that idea as truth instead of just one aspect of what is. All of our perceptions are just aspects of what we are. And that's what's incredible about the entire experience, is that when you look at it, you are such an infinite being of perspective. You could take this experience and turn it into anything, just in how you look at yourself. That's incredible. Instead, we look to the future, we look to the past, we look to the perceptions of quote unquote others. And the entire time, it's really just looking at ourselves. It's always looking at ourselves, and we don't recognize it. We're like, oh, this person's judging me for this. They just happen to be judging me for the exact same thing that I'm judging myself for. It's convenient that way. And it's always like that. People will make a comment about something, and they don't recognize that it's only worthy of comment because they value it. That's all. It's like, I'm worried about how people are going to look at this shirt. Are you? Or are you worried about how you look at that shirt? And that other people might look at it the same way. And they don't. The question is, why are you so attached to it? And recognizing, oh, right, people may not give a shit about my shirt is really a reflection of you giving less of a shit about your shirt. Because you couldn't admit that people may not care about your shirt unless you were willing to stop caring about it so much yourself. It's all a reflection of you. Just relax, stop making assumptions, stop clinging for some sense of who you are, and just be it. And that becomes sensitivity. and that becomes fluidity, and that eventually becomes joy.
And that tether of a timeline that we create, a spot where we don't feel the way we feel right now in the future, it kind of tethers us to a false certainty of this being exactly what I think it is. And, the assumptions that we make about how things are and how other people think are, as you said, they're always coming from ourselves. Like those judgments, they don't just come from nowhere. They come from you. They come from, the judgments you have about yourself, and the concern for certain judgments are just coming from you. So if you can take a second to be like, okay, well, what if I stop judging myself? What if I don't get so overly critical of the things that I'm doing, assuming that everyone else thinks exactly the same way? And we can make that assumption, that people are thinking the same exact things that we are about ourselves. And there's none of them. That doesn't exist at all. Everyone has a different perception of you inside of their head based on a reflection of themselves. And it's always that. And so you can't know what other people are thinking about you. You can't know how someone else sees you. You only see how you see you. And that's exactly where everything comes from, is assuming that you're correct, assuming that you can know, assuming that you can know yourself, assuming you can know that yourself is comprised of how everyone else thinks, which just so happens to be exactly how you think about yourself. And so if you let go of the false certainty about how you believe yourself to be with any degree of truth, because it has none, it has no merit whatsoever. If you can let go of that, you can become untethered to that timeline, to that story of getting somewhere else, getting to another spot where you feel differently. If you can be okay with yourself now and realize that, the things you think are wrong with you are just assumptions that you're making to have some degree of certainty, right? You trade that false certainty for freedom, because you've when you were younger, you lost that experience possibly, or you had an experience where you thought you couldn't go back to that state of freedom, of just being able to say what comes up, or express how you feel, or do what you want to do, dance when you want to dance, all of that, and just being able to not have that hesitation. It's like we build up barriers to avoid that hesitation, or to avoid the avoidance of the hesitation, and just being able to say what we want to say, and do what we want to do with things. And it's a hesitation both in speech and in action too. Like, oh, well, if I do this, well, this could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen. It's like, yeah, but you don't know any of those things. You don't know how it's going to happen ever. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You don't know what is even fucking going on right now and how it fits into things, the experiences that you're having, the ups and the downs that you're going through. You never know where it's going to lead ever. And to avoid that, we create a story, and then we just believe it. But it's always bullshit. All of the stories, fucking bullshit. You can recognize that even when it seems like you're so sure, relax just a little bit, because you can't know, but it's very much okay. There's massive beauty in that.
It's interesting. You were saying something that over time I've really struggled to wrap my head around, because we are all one in terms of our awareness. But on the other hand, we have this incredible capacity to think of ourselves as separate. And so one has to wonder, okay, hold on. So if we're all thinking different things, how does that work out? How are we all one and still thinking different things? And it's because it's not the thinking that matters. The thinking is the result of the perception. And the perception is always of your relationship with reality, always in terms of how much or little you recognize that you are the observed, that the two are not separate. And that changes your perceptions of everything. It changes why you scramble for control. It changes how you might feel anxious, or you might feel insecure. Like, all of that is the perspective of division. It's the perspective of others, of separation, and therefore something to fear. So while we're all thinking different things, those thoughts are based on the experience that we're having, but they're all filtered through the lens of a perspective of division. And each of us are wandering around embodying a perspective of division somewhere within the spectrum of that. And collectively, we are all embodying an overall perspective of division. And that's really what's happening, is the change in perspective. And so the only thing that you can do is to relax, because the relaxation itself is the embodiment of your recognition. There is no division. And that is the change that's happening. It's not about the discussion that's happening. It's about the perspective that's driving it. It's not about the thoughts that we're having. It's not that we're all one, but we're thinking individual thoughts. It's that we're all one, lost in a collective perspective of division. And that collective perspective of division sprouts many different types of trees. And we're all experiencing those types of trees as thoughts. We change the overall perspective, we get a whole different crop of trees, right? And that's really what it comes down to, is the overall mentality. And there's no way for you to teach unity. There's no way for you to go out and say, listen about how we're all one. Because who the fuck are you talking to? It's all you. That's the perspective. That's the point, is the recognition that there's nothing to do except be with yourself, because everything around you is this scramble to be something. And that is the perspective of division that's making all of this fallout. There's nothing to do except relax. Be here. Make the most of the moment you're in, because it's you. Stop thinking about it.
Well said. And even right now, like as we're recording this episode at our 5th retreat in Vancouver, fuck yeah. and going through and realizing that when I do shout outs like that, sometimes I forget entirely what I'm gonna say. And it's always that little fear. I'm like, oh yeah, shout out this, and then it's like, oh shit, there was something else in there. But yeah, so it's even uh fuck, what was the last thing you said about the
Great question.
something about perception?
It really is. I mean, okay, so here's a really good point in general. Steal that from me for a second. Okay, so here's a really good point in general. We get to this place where we're like, shit, I was going to say something. I have no idea what that is. And I'm going to scramble. I'm going to worry about it. I'm going to, oh my God, what is everybody going to think? Who am I thinking about? I'm thinking about me. And I'm running all of you, quote unquote, through the perspective of me. And it's hilarious, because it's all the perspective of division. The fact is I'm still having this experience. I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to say that.
And that reminds me exactly of what I was going to say, which is that it's not about what you say. When you realize that, even the phrase "we're all one" isn't quite it. There's no we. And so in expressing this, talking about this, we're doing an episode right now, and Ray's always said it's just about the conversation. It's just about the conversation. I've always had this perspective, like, yeah, but we're kind of like helping people, right? We're kind of like giving them good insights and thoughts and shit, right? There's some of that, and it isn't, because there is no way to, through as you're perceiving an other, adequately get anything across to them, because there's a striding, there's a tension that comes with that. And so it's not about anything that we say, because there's nothing that could be said that couldn't be understood through you and your experience. And so the only thing I can do is relax and keep taking action. So, even in situation where you forget exactly what you're going to say, it's like, what response is the best for all of me? It's just like, relax. It's okay. You're just talking to yourself. You're just interacting with yourself. There's nothing to fear, but we fear that state of relaxation, because we've seen it as something that we have to avoid. We can't just relax. There's reasons to be tense. And so we never find out what there is to be said on the other side of that relaxation. It's like you relax a little bit, and then all of a sudden, what you want to do, what you wanted to say, what you wanted to to do next is right there, because it was always right there. And is it not just the tension that we hold on to, the concern that clouds that clouds what's right there when we let go of needing to have an answer or needing to know what to say or needing to say something? When we let go of that, all of a sudden there's something to say. All of a sudden there's something to respond with. All of a sudden there's something to go on about, and it's right there, but we don't let go of the stress, of the tension, so we never even realize that it is just right there. Like, it's always just right there, and it's even just a subtle degree of relaxation more, and it's right there, but we don't even want to look. It's like standing on a trap door that we don't want to look down at because we want to look somewhere else. We want to think it's somewhere else, and we don't let go of that need to get somewhere, and which allows us to relax, because trying to get somewhere, trying to be something and relaxing can't happen together. Like, that act of trying is it. You can't try to relax. It's an oxymoron. And so it's just something that you have to be, let go of the reasons not to, and realize that it's the best thing that you can do, and test it out and see what's on the other side of that relaxation. Because it's oftentimes the tension, the stress that divides us from the experience that we're having, which is where everything lies. And if we can relax in that, all of a sudden things just start flowing a little bit. And it comes down to you and your experience. And when you start prioritizing your experience as opposed to trying to prove yourself, then you're a little more relaxed and things start to work out a little bit more smoothly. But it's kind of irrelevant of how they're working out, because you're relaxed anyway. And so it's always, that's the initial driver to the experience. And that's the influence that you can have, is remaining relaxed through whatever you're going through and finding out what you're capable of in that spot that you've avoided for a very long time.
So I think this is really important because it's the reason that we have our groups. It's the reason that we encourage people to use our Discord. And it's ultimately the reason that these retreats and the events that will eventually grow from these retreats are so important. Because if it's not about the conversation, then it really is just about embodying, being yourself, just embodying the lessons, not talking about them, though that's going to happen because you're embodying them, but truly just knowing there's no one to convince and taking it upon yourself to just relax. And so over the years, as this has settled in for me in my own life, it's really been about being present with people when they're with me, not making assumptions about them, not holding on to judgments about them, not projecting myself or my idea of myself onto them, and then being able to truly listen to who they are. And in being able to listen, because the only way you can listen is in putting down your walls enough to do so, you are passing on the message, whether you realize it or not, that it's okay to just relax and be yourself around you, because you are relaxing and being yourself around them. And it may not seem that people pick up on that right away, but over time, they'll start to talk to you about things they didn't talk to you about before. They'll start to bring up, maybe controversial thoughts that they didn't want to express with anybody else. And it's because they start to recognize that you don't take yourself as seriously, and so you're not as judgmental, and they don't have to be as afraid to communicate with you. But what you're really teaching them is that they can relax and be themselves. And so in our groups, the overall message is, you want to speak, you have something of value to say, do it. And it's on us to recognize that, allow you to have the space to do it. And because everybody has that general intention, the overall message over and over is, it's okay to just be you. You want to talk? Cool. Don't want to talk? That's just fine too. There's no pressure at all. We're just happy you're here. And that's really it. And then the retreats are the same. Everybody at this retreat, in one way or another, has recognized that you can just be yourself. You can just talk about what you want to talk about. And you're valued. You're valued because you're you, because you have a lifetime of experience making yourself whatever the fuck you are right now. It's just that the people around you are so wrapped up in themselves that they can't see it. And so you start to doubt it yourself, instead of reassuring them by reassuring yourself that you don't have to doubt. And so this is a great place to practice. Be surrounded by people who are just letting go, and remind yourself and others, through letting go of others, that you can just relax. And then you take it with you into the rest of the world. And that's the message. It's not about the podcast. It's not about the conversation. It's not about any of it. That's just kind of the byproduct of relaxing enough to express yourself, because that's the point. Relax, express yourself. There's value in it. You don't have to see it, just do it. It's the process of trying to see it that limits it.
Yeah, that recognition that there's nothing wrong with you and there's never been anything wrong with you, and that recognition is a powerful shift, right? But there's still years and years and years and years of experience where you did think there's you bet. Stop coming. There we go. All right. There were years and years and years where you did think there was something wrong with you, and so the recognition causes enough of a shift where you can finally, fuck, there's no way I'm getting through this without fucking crying. Yeah. You know, so, it's like I'm aware enough to be laughing, but it's like there's no way they're not gonna.
And that's okay.
Yeah. So so you, thanks, Amanda. You know, years and years, you do think there's something wrong with you, and you build up strategies to avoid those things that made you feel like there was something wrong. And you know, once you realize there was never anything wrong, you know, there was a lot of years of that being reinforced, and so it takes time to shake those. You know, the recognition gives you the space to start working through things, but it's, you know, over time it's still, there's a lot to work through, and so it's just the concern of the progress that you're making, you know, even away from hell. You know, it's like, there's still, you know, the perception of progress being made, but you don't have to measure yourself for that, you know. And there's like an addictive pattern of measuring yourself and, you know, the progress that you're making and where you're at relative to where you think you should be at. And we keep changing the bar for ourselves, not realizing, fuck, I've changed the bar a lot of times. Like, I can chill with that for a sec. Like, the bar has been moved many times. And so you forget that you've moved it so many times, because every time it's just a new bar, right? Oh man, you got a fucking massive ladder and you forget you're on one because you're just reaching for the next fucking bar. But realizing that the bars you set for yourself, the expectations you set for yourself that you keep striving for new ones to achieve, aren't necessary. You don't have to maintain those bars of progress and measuring yourself. You can't know. You can't know how you're doing. How the fuck do you think you can measure it? What are you thinking you can measure it? Right? You can't. You can't know. But you know, you make an assumption that you can, and yeah, and then you suffer because of it. But you can't know. You can't know where things are going, what you're going through right now, how you're doing. You can't. You can't know. And there's a beauty in being able to fully realize that you can't know how you're doing.
What kicks me right in the ass is the fact that you don't have to. I love the fact that there isn't a single thing you will ever accomplish in your life through self-judgment that you couldn't accomplish without it. I fucking love that shit. I love the fact that there isn't a single thing, because it's just a reflection of what you could do. It's just how you got there. You got there through whipping yourself. That's great. How's that feel for you? The whipping was optional. Isn't that a kick in the teeth? Fuck. Right? And that's really it. That's what it is. It's not that it's a bad thing necessarily, except that you're doing it. It's like, why is this hurt? Ow. And you keep doing it. That seems like it's not necessarily helpful. But to understand, like, oh, I'm doing that, that means you're going to do it less. That's really all it is. It's not about whether or not you're doing something wrong. It's understanding that the very perspective that you can is the spectrum that you're going through. That's the lesson that you're learning, is that your perspective that there is a wrong thing that you can do is reflective of how much you're perceiving yourself. That's really it. You're just looking at yourself in a way where you can be something, and therefore there's a right way or a wrong way. The understanding that you're already what you want to be means there's no wrong way to do it. You're already doing it. There's nothing you have to do that you're not already doing. Just do what you're doing. That's the important part. We always get caught up. It's like, what am I supposed to do? While we're doing something. And that's the thing we're doing, but we're not paying attention to what we're doing. Instead, we're thinking what we should do. And so now we're not only not doing something, but we're paying no attention to what is happening because we're very much caught up in our head. And it's like being asleep. We were talking about this earlier today. It's very interesting to me, the experience of dreaming, because we have this perspective of reality. What is real? What is unreal? Have you ever thought about what's unreal? What does that even fucking mean? All of this is energetic soup that we look at as solid. It's not, right? We're not solid. I'm touching this table. Who knows how? We still don't know how. This energy is just doing its thing. What does that sound like? It sounds like a dream. That's exactly what it sounds like, except, and here's the fun part, without the perspective of division. That's what a dream is. In dream, you're like, this is a dream. It's me. Here, you're like, this is reality. I am separate from this. Why do you think that? Outside of the fact that everybody around you is like, yeah, because they're afraid. And this is it. Is this mentality of fear is based on the perspective of division. That is the dominant theme of our current dream. That's it. We've made this dream into a nightmare by perceiving a separation from it. And now the dream is changing as we wake up to the fact that we are the dreamer. There is no separation, and there is nothing more real than how you see yourself, than how you experience yourself. And all of this is us experiencing ourselves. And you could say, well, it's the dream of the universe, but that's just fucking reality.
Exactly. And it's always a reflection of you, right? How you see yourself. Because even in a dream, you can feel separate in that. A dream at night, you recognize that it's my dream if you recognize it, but if you recognize it. And so it's very, very much a reflection, how we experience reality and how we experience dreams, because there isn't a difference besides our investment in it, right? Our investment in me being what I think, and therefore everything being a reflection of what I think. And so it's always that direct reflection, right? If you see yourself in a certain way, you see everyone as attributes of that. And guess what? Everyone else is doing that from their perspective too. So all those thoughts that you're so sure of about yourself and how people think about you and how people respond to you and how people, look at you or whatever it may be are stemming from them. They're seeing a different version of you than the one that you have. And so, as we start to recognize that everything is that reflection of ourself and how we see things, and we start taking ourselves a little bit less seriously, everything becomes a little less certain. That thing that I think that thing is, or that thing is, or that thing is, isn't that. And it isn't that. It's never that. It's never what I think it is. It's what's left beyond that. It's what's left without the name, without the label. And then it's just, oh yeah, this is reality. But it's reflective of, how you see yourself, the certainty, because you're a component of that environment that you're experiencing. You are what is here and now. Like that's just it. And so that includes everything that you're perceiving, and your entire environment is that. But we have labels for those and ways to think of that as other, but they aren't that, just like you aren't what you think. You can never know the truth of what you are conceptually. Like it can't be something that is known or how it's being perceived by anyone else. And so once you start to realize how uncertain all of it is, it becomes a little bit more dreamlike, but it's just as real as it's always been. It's just there's less weight to it, in a sense, very similar to the dream. So how much of our investment in perceiving ourselves to be something and believing that wholeheartedly to be the truth of what we are is the weight that weighs us down and makes us feel very, very dense and serious and real. And it's just our clinging to false certainty and the feeling of control that comes with it and just believing whatever we tell ourselves be the truth. As we start to question that, it shifts, the weight starts to come off a bit. And it's just the willingness to not know, to be uncertain, and to be okay with that. And that state of relaxation is right there with that, when you realize that not knowing is okay, that you can't know what's to come or even necessarily what's going on right now, and you come to terms with that. It's like everything gets a little bit lighter, because it's always the case.
As we were talking about earlier, it really is about letting go of the path. And by the path, we don't mean let go of doing things, because that's what you are, but let go of the idea that that will ever add something to what you are. It may change the environment, but it does not change your value. It doesn't have any reflection on what it is to be you. And in understanding that it's just a path, it's not a path that means anything. It's not a path that is necessary. It's just a path, because you can choose any goddamn path you want. You can follow the paths of other people, or you can trudge on through the woods and make your own goddamn path. The point is, the path isn't the priority. The priority is the step. The priority is where you're standing right now, and that you can just be yourself on this path, whatever the path is. Because again, the path is not important. The person walking the path is what's important, because the person is the path. But we forget that, and we get caught up on this idea that it's really about trying to be something. And in trying to be something, or more importantly, in trying not to be something else, we become desperate and afraid, and we do stupid, selfish shit. And we become corrupt politicians, or we become greedy bankers, or we become someone with a history of alcoholic violence, or we become just narcissistic. And in all of that, it's just because we're trying to be something or not be something else, because we think our value is something that's measured. And if you listen to what I just said, that means that we're doing the exact wrong thing in trying to change the world. It's not about government policy. It's not about environmental policy. It's not about policing corrupt politicians or corrupt bankers. It's about understanding that those motherfuckers are there out of fear. That entire mess comes from a state of fear. And until you deal with yours, how can you reinforce anybody else's faith in themselves? How can you teach anything to anyone if you're not experiencing it? And to experience it, you have to stop trying to teach anyone anything. And that's where faith comes in. That's where understanding the bedrock versus the structure that's built upon it. The bedrock of this experience, of this dream that we're currently having collectively, quote unquote, is the perspective that we're divided from the dream. And so we can never relax. We can never feel at ease being ourselves. And so we're always on the run from the stick or towards the carrot. And in that, we do selfish things that cause destruction to the rest of ourselves. And we're blind to it because we're too busy focusing on a very small part of ourselves, thinking that it's separate from everything else. And so it's very difficult to see the impact that you're having when you're invested in not doing so, because then you'd have to change what you're doing. And so it really just comes down to just relax. And as everyone relaxes, just think to yourself. Let's just take you, the listener. Let's take where you live. Let's take your neighborhood, your neighbors. Just walk out your door. How much of your experience in your neighborhood, in terms of who you talk to, who you don't talk to, what you don't talk about, is based on the realization that more than likely those people aren't very relaxed? How much of your restriction in terms of what you're willing to do and express around people is based on either fear yourself or the recognition that it's not going to be well received because everybody else is tense and stressed out and trying to survive paycheck to paycheck? Now, just take all of that and add 50% more space to those people's lives. And by space, I mean just time to themselves, time where they don't feel they have to be anything, just a little bit more relaxation. Everybody be a bit more open. Everybody would be having an entirely different experience simply because they feel a little bit more relaxed. And in doing so, they would buy less shit, watch less shit, hide from less people. Everything they do would change. And in doing so, the community would start to work together more on one level or another in small pockets at first. But it's the relaxation that does it. It's just understanding that being yourself is what brings us together. It's not about bringing other people together. It's about bringing yourself together as everything that is, which is just not getting in your own way with an idea of who you are. Just do. Be the step. The step is the point. The path is not the point. The path is just how you get to express how well you are doing this step.
Well said. Yeah. It's nice knowing that just you relaxing is the most impactful thing you can ever do. Like there's nothing else, no other intention, nothing to prove, nothing to become. There's nothing more to be. And if you can just be relaxed in yourself in each and every experience, and then go do shit. Like you don't need the lack of relaxation, the tension, the stress in order to do. Like the try to get to a spot that makes you more complete than you are right now, this fictitious location that you keep maintaining to give yourself that timeline and that idea of certainty. It's like, no, you can just prioritize this experience right now and then go do shit and then, go interact. But there's nothing, it's like we strive to find things that are going to make us more relaxed, and we try to find them at all times, and we'll buy into shit. Like so much of the things that we do is because we can't relax in ourselves, we need other things to force the relaxation into us. And people want the answer of like, oh well, I can't relax because I have all these things going on. It's totally understandable in the society that's an expression of the tension that we hold on to, that we're currently experiencing. And so in this mentality, the tricky part is that everyone wants an answer to what it's going to look like, right? As people become more relaxed in their lives, even just to small degrees, until that starts to snowball. And even just a little bit, like, what does that society look like? Like what are we changing? What things are we going to try out and work on, and what policies are we going to enact to make the change? How's it going to happen? What's the 10-year plan? What's the 20-year plan? It's all fucking control. It's all like, we need to know how it's going to happen. It's like, how the fuck are you going to know how it's going to happen if it's the entire society that's changing, the fabric of the society changing, the mentality that's driving the society? And so it's this idea that the society is something else from you that keeps it from changing. It's the mentality itself, the perception of division that we're seeing an expression of to a very strong degree. And so it has to just happen through you for it to change. It's like the idea of convincing anyone else is a component of the mentality and the society that we're experiencing as an expression of that mentality. But this mentality can't be something that's taught. The recognition that it's just you interacting with yourself. It has to be just through you, right? It has to be through the state that you're willing to embody and experience. And as you said, have the faith that that is the impact. Because when you're not holding on to anything else, it's all that's left. It's all that's left is, this is just you. It's really the only one that makes any degree of sense, if you're not settling upon a shitload of assumptions and just false certainty just to try and feel better. If you're willing to let go of all of that this is just you, and it's not what you think, it's just what it is. It's just what's left.
It's funny because what we're saying sounds really simple. Just relax, recognize that it's just you. You're running from this realization when in fact it is freedom, that kind of thing. And when you start to look at it on a grand scale, when you start to look at it in terms of like how it would affect how we all live, often you get the argument like, oh, you guys are thinking about a utopia with no money. It's like, well, yeah, ultimately, sure. But let's just start with something that makes sense. The recognition that we're all in this together, that in fact we are all one, would radically change how we look at, I don't know, the education system. Why are we charging people to be educated in ways that would benefit us all? Why are we charging them so much, in fact, that it ruins the rest of their foreseeable future? That makes zero sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. Why are we creating products that we don't know how to get rid of for the sake of more money? things like this, we don't think about each other in terms of we're all one. We think about it in terms of profit. Now, I'm not saying capitalism's bad. Capitalism's not bad if we're built upon a mentality that is less divisive. And we've talked about this before in terms of a factory that has a bunch of workers and makes a certain amount of profit, and a certain amount of that goes to the owner of the factory. And then the owner of the factory gets a machine that does like half the work. And instead of giving all of the workers half the day off, they fire half the workers. So that way the owner of the company can make more money. That wasn't necessary to begin with. So you see, capitalism itself isn't a bad thing. All of those people could have had more time to enjoy their lives and have more time to be themselves and have more time to participate in the community and have more time to express whatever it is they are. And everybody would advance because of it. So capitalism, the exchange of currency notes that represent value that is being exchanged, isn't a bad thing. But the mentality of division that drives it is why we have fractional reserve banking. It's why we have the tax system the way that it is. It's why we have people who have golden parachutes. It's why we have billionaires. It's because we took something that was a useful tool and it got filtered through our fear and selfishness. The point is the fear and selfishness. The selfishness makes sense because of the fear. If you relax, the selfishness makes less sense. That is what we have forgotten. Each of us individually are learning to relax and take a breath, but all of us collectively are just coming up for air. And so it's just inhaling, it's just breathing yourself, and you don't have to try to be anything to breathe. Just breathe.
It's like it's been a collective tension, and that's what we're feeling is a collective tense and relaxation and a fluctuation in that you're both a component of and the entire fucking thing, because you're it. And so what you have at your disposal is influence just over that, the collective tension and relaxation. That's the beauty in it, is you have influence over that in every fucking moment, every fucking thing that you're going through. And if our experience isn't how am I gonna say it? If our experience isn't anything beyond just us going through different experiences with a willingness either to relax or tense up and fight it the whole way through, then I don't know what it is. Right? Every experience we go through is a variation of me going through a variation of an experience that has the potential to be either relaxed through or tensed up through. You know, whether you eat a fuckload of edibles and it's like you're feeling all your thoughts and getting anxious as fuck. It's like, is that something you can relax through? And what sort of ripple does that have if that's a more stressful environment, or someone going through, you know, deeply traumatic experiences, and the willingness to let go of that. That is a component both during the experience itself, but after the experience. You know, past memories. Are you willing to let go of those? Are you willing to relax in regards to response to those? And so it's not even just situationally, it's holding on to all of our false certainty. Like, can you let go of that? Can you relax through that? And so it's different variations of what things you can relax through. Can you be very, very afraid of this situation and afraid of getting afraid? And it's like, can you relax through that combined experience? And it's always different variations of that, of you finding out, of you collectively going through the infinite variations of experience as me, as everyone in this room, as everyone listening to this, collectively just tensing and relaxing through different variations of experiences. And the society is a reflection of that. And we've been tensing harder and harder and harder for years and years and years. And so we see it reflected in the collective. And then, you know, the tenser we are, the more control we feel like we need of things, the more that me individually feels like I need more control, as well as me in entirety. And as we relax more and more, you know, the responses to things shift and change. And there's responses in everything from the substances that are made legal or illegal to, you know, whatever laws are being enacted and how they're enforced. And even, the enforcers start to relax, and then, the thing starts to make more sense. There's laws changed, all that shit. Things become more legalized as an expression. Cannabis and mushrooms are making an uptick. It's like it's all different variations of the expression of relaxation to tension, and the things that made us relaxed more. Of course, those things that get banned as we're collectively stressed out. And we see, it's like we chase a value in getting stressed, thinking there is an end to that. And then we take that to its peak, and then we're like, oh shit, that doesn't really do the thing I thought that it did. And then so we start to relax through that. But it's almost like we're always going through the extremes of both. And then it's like being fully relaxed, it's like, then I don't know, there's a fluctuation back towards control or a subtle investment in something, and the cycle continues. But we talk about it in cycles and over time, and it's just you right now. It's just you right now, whatever you're going through, whatever situation that you're dealing with. It's like, can you relax a little bit about it? Can you let go of your assumption about it that isn't fucking true? It's just an assumption you're believing to be true. Can you let that go, and therefore allow yourself to relax just a little bit more?
So this is really funny to me. I was just looking at it this way. So the path that you perceive yourself to be on is altered by the stress level of each step. So if the next step, you're like, God, I don't know what's coming, the path is going to look terrifying. It's like everything around you suddenly becomes fucking fire and brimstone. I don't know what to do. But if you're like, fuck it, I got this, all of a sudden everything's green fields. And it's so funny that, again, it comes down to the step that defines the path. And if you just relax through the step, the path reflects that, because the path isn't real. It's just the perception based on where you are right now. That's fucking hilarious.
There is no path. It's just you and your willingness to chill a little bit. Oh my God. There's no other spot that you get to. There's never another place that you relax or tense up, ever. It's always just that, just you in this moment right now, being willing to be a little bit more yourself, a little bit less yourself, a little bit more relaxed, or a little bit tensed out because you're believing that, your assumption is true about anything, but it's not, and you can't know it. And that's okay. And it's always just that. There's nowhere else that you're getting. There's nothing more that you're becoming. You're not on a journey towards becoming your higher self or something better than what you are. You're just it. You're just reality finding out what it's capable of, with no right or wrong thing to do. Just a willingness to recognize that the reasons that you were so stressed and tense don't make much sense. Try again. See what could happen if you let go of your assumptions, if you relax a little bit right now, because it's been so long and you haven't tried it in a while. It's like, see what you're capable of. You let go of those assumptions. You realize that you can't know. It's like, find out. Just give it a shot. Give it a couple days, a couple experiences. It's like you've already tried the stressed out approach, stressing, getting worried, concerned, afraid. Like, you've maintained that for a very long time. You've given that one a shot. It hasn't worked so great, but you keep trying to do it. You're like, no, this time getting super worried about this is going to make it better. It's like, you're going to do it anyway. You're going to go into it anyway. Maybe try another route, another option. Option B. It's like, we can try that out once in a while and see what we're capable of, and see what we can actually do when we're not holding ourselves back from finding out, because that's all we're ever doing.
What do we do when we're on a path that we're afraid of, other than try to protect ourselves from it? We try to get off the path, build a house, structures, walls, need locks, need to gather some shit, hoard, make sure I'm protected and secure and safe. And so the more we're afraid of the path, the more we want to lock ourselves in a little box for security. And it ends up being a prison. And what's interesting is that when you look at collectively what we've built, it's just been a bunch of boxes. That's what our society is. We compartmentalize everything, including ourselves. And it's just because we're all collectively perceiving the path as something to be afraid of. And so our collective path reflects it. And that's all this is. As we let that go, as we relax into the step, everything else changes. And that's what we mean when we say enough ripples change the pond. And every step you take is a ripple. Just relax. And if you can, come relax with us. Thank you so much for joining us for this fucking fantastic episode. It was great having you here. We wish you could join us at one of these retreats. And if you can, please do. You'll find the details at dualisticunity.com. There are some sick discounts on our Patreon page. Join us if you can. I'll pass it over to Andrew to wrap this up. But fuck yeah, buddy.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, appreciate everyone for tuning in. Appreciate everyone who's at this fucking awesome Vancouver retreat with us. You're fucking amazing, beautiful people. Love you very much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.